Don't go chasing waterfalls. Please stick to the rivers and the lakes that you used to. All right, Rumble, I guess you're good to go. Let's do the damn thing. Doobie-doobie-doo.
I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Thursday, guys. Welcome back to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is also connected to RBN Network. I don't know why I said it like that. This is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays and Fridays, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. I hope you had a great day yesterday. Of course, you know I'm out here on Wednesdays, but it seems a lot of things have happened. I get one day off and I come back with a whole bunch of different stories that are taking place. So yeah. What happened the last show? I'll explain that. Thank you for that, Danny. So apparently, and this is a new thing, you guys know I've talked about like different like episodes from Russell Brand on the show before. And so apparently now Russell Brand's show on YouTube is now copyrighted by Rumble. So when I was playing the Russell Brand clip, the stream suspended and then the stream came back after I removed that episode. So once I removed that episode from the stream and I continued, the stream came back. But yeah, so heads up to everyone out there. Apparently now, and this was the notification that I got from YouTube, apparently now Rumble actually owns Russell Brand's YouTube show as well. So I can't play anything from Russell Brand's show. So just FYI. So yeah, it is what it is. It wasn't a copyright strike, but it was like a copyright claim, which means that they can claim the monetization for that stream because I did show that episode. So that sucks. Yeah. So unfortunately, you won't be able to see me do that on here anymore. You would think that fair use would apply in reference to that though, because I mean, it is on YouTube, but at the same time, like fair use doesn't apply for music videos. Like I can't show music videos that are on YouTube on this show either, because it still has copyright. So these are the things that happen along the way. And I would actually imagine that that'll probably be the case for more Rumble shows. So don't be surprised if I'm not able to show like Glenn Greenwald's Rumble show on here or Kim Iris's Rumble show on here. That could be something that Rumble is changing along the way. So it is what it is, folks. These are things I just learned along the way. It happened to me one time before, like, I think it was like last year, I was showing a segment from The View and the same thing happened. And I think it's because I was playing it for quite a long time. So anyway, want to go ahead and give shout outs to people in the chat and then we'll go ahead and dive in and do the damn thing. Shout out to Miguel, says peace. Greetings, Lawrence, who is a Sabby member, says hello to Miguel. Shout out to Hannah, says I'm here. Greetings, Kimmy, says hi, Sabbies. Shout out to Silver Surfer, says Sabby. I don't think many of us care about overrated Britney Spears or culture vulture Justin Timberlake. Wow. LOL. Yeah. I don't usually talk about like celebrity stories on this show, but I do want to make a point with this one. I want to connect it to another story, which I think you might find interesting. But there is a point that I have to make with the story. Shout out to Lorez, says, hiya, Sabrina, Eric, and Sabby fam. Behind on my pop culture news, What Brit JT news? Maddow was one of the worst establishment chills. Go Jose Vega. Smash the like, y'all. Yeah. Shout out to Delilah. Hi, Sabrina. Glad to see and hear your much improved sound and video when you were on the ground at the Free Palestine protests a few days ago. You just keep getting better and better. Let me tell you something, Delilah. First of all, thank you. But you know why the sound and video quality is better? Because I didn't live stream it. I actually recorded it on my phone. So for whatever reason, and Eric's my producer, for those who don't know, we've been talking about this before, that for whatever reason, when I use StreamYard on the ground, which I'm using it on my phone, the quality is not the same as it is when I use it on the desktop, because StreamYard does not have an app. So I had to log into StreamYard through Google Chrome and then, live stream from there. But Eric and I have noticed that the quality is just not the same when I use StreamYard on the ground. So for this protest, especially since it was raining, I had a feeling that the connection was not going to be that great either. So I just recorded it and then uploaded it as a premiere. Shout out to Ravina, who's a Sabby member, says, poor MTG. She just isn't very photogenic, is she? Shout out to Jay Georgie, who's a Sabby member, says warmongerous Maddow needs to be confronted at every turn. I agree. Shout out to Steve, says hello, everybody. Greetings, Saul, says yo. Shout out to Ilhanner, says hi, Hannah. Greetings, whoever, says what's up, comrades. Shout out to Nintendo. What up, my fellow fam? Greetings. Whoops, almost with the same one. Greetings, Bryce, says, what up, Sabby? What up, Bryce? Shout out to Kaladin, says, Sabby fam fire. Greetings, Sean, says, yerp. Shout out to David, said, got censored on YouTube now too. This is getting out of hand. Well, I can see you on YouTube. I don't know if you did this, you were on another channel, but I can see you just fine. I'd hope everybody in the chat can see you. Shout out to Ghost, says great interview with Katie. Thank you. If you guys have a chance to do so, when you do get the opportunity, watch the interview that I did with Katie Halper. So I premiered that interview earlier this afternoon. We recorded it and then I premiered it. I think around 4:30 this afternoon. It's a really good interview. I think Katie's very knowledgeable in reference to Israel and Palestine. So we talked a lot about that. So check out that interview. Shout out to Kaiwan. They will be doing the anti-Louisville. Interesting. Shout out to Joe, says, hi, perfect people. Greetings, kill your egorgers, says hello to Mastermind Hour. And shout out to Nikki World, who says hello to everyone. What's up? All right. Oh, thank you too, Roger. Shout out to Roger, who's a Sabby member, says, love the Katie and Kim Iverson interview. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I've been trying to bring on different voices in reference to this particular issue, so you guys can hear different perspectives and their experiences as well. All righty. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. As I always say, you're keeping the lights on around up in this piece. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. There's also Sabbies, and of course, members. All of their names are listed here. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. And I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Brian Shelbourne, Tara Astor, Bogda, Lana Arif Harrell, John Azevedo, and Daniel Healy. Shout out to all of those peeps, all those newbies in the house. They are now doing the damn thing. All right, so what are we talking about tonight? We got a little bit of mixture of stories tonight. One of them is a celebrity news story. And I know some of you are like, oh, no, not a celebrity news story. But this one is actually pretty interesting. And there's something that I do want to touch on in reference to the story that I think once I do that, I think you're going to understand why I decided to cover this story. Because I think there's a bigger point that needs to be made, not just what someone revealed in a new book, right? So let's go ahead and get into that thumbnail so I can show you what we're discussing tonight. Tonight, we are discussing Briahna Joy Gray is smeared. Yikes. They're at it again, folks. I told you they would start coming after people, right? And this is not the first time that they've come after Bri. We're going to touch on what happened before as well. So we'll get into that. We're also going to discuss Rachel Maddow is confronted again, this time by Jose Vega and his friend Russell from Dude Dissidents. We're going to get into that discussion there. Rachel, of all people, needs to answer for a lot of the statements and the rhetoric that she's made on MSNBC and her position in being a warmonger. Let's just keep it real. We're also going to discuss Britney Spears' shocking reveal. Justin does not look happy in that picture. And if you haven't heard the news, you'll find out why. And we're also going to discuss Marjorie Taylor Greene upset. She's not happy either. She is not in a good mood. Well, we're going to get into that, and we're going to talk about some of the hypocrisy that goes along with that as well. But before we get started, if you have not had a chance to do so, don't forget to smash that like button. Give me a thumbs up because it helps me out with the algo. Thank you. Okay. Let's get into this story about Rachel Maddow. Now, you all know I'm not a fan of Rachel Maddow. I'm pretty sure you guys are not either, or most of you probably are not a fan of Rachel Maddow. Now, she was notorious for being a Russiagator. She's notorious for promoting war that suits her interests and suits the narrative for MSNBC. And we're not here to say that there isn't going to be moments where commentators don't get things wrong. I'm not here to say there isn't a moment when journalists don't get things wrong. But what I am here to say is that when you realize that you were wrong, you come back and do your due diligence and you apologize for the statements that you made. You retract your statement. I have yet to see Rachel Maddow do that in reference to Russiagate and some of the other things that she said. And now you have to understand that Rachel Maddow is now on a book tour. So there's been a lot of books popping up this week, but she's on a book tour. So she's been doing several interviews, right? And so this event that Jose Vega and Russell went to, Rachel Maddow is, of course, the featured speaker, I believe. Ben Stiller is also on the stage with her as well. You know, it's this is weird. This is weird. But I feel like if it's someone that you are going to confront, particularly about Russiagate and warmongering, that is in media, mainstream media, I think Rachel is probably one of those people you're probably going to want to have a talk to. Now, before we get into what happened with that confrontation, I want to take you back to, I think it was a couple of months ago when this confrontation happened with Jose Vega, when he confronted journalists from the Washington Post. This is to show you again that obviously, you know, Jose is not just confronting politicians. He's also confronting media personalities, commentators, and journalists that have also gotten the facts wrong and they have not corrected their information, which again, I think is very important. You need to correct the lies that you told. So I want to take you back to this moment when he confronted journalists from the Washington Post and the LA Times about the lies that they told in reference to war and Julian Assange. Let's start with this.
Oh, is this the lecture hall with Seymour Hersh? I'm looking for the one with Seymour Hersh because it's a policy and press hall event. So shouldn't we be talking about the Nord Stream since that's the biggest story of the century? And you guys, you know,
I'm sorry.
I mean, you have the executive editor of the New York Times there who came out with a phony story to try and block Seymour Hersh. It's just kind of funny how that happened, you know? I mean, did you even acknowledge Seymour Hersh?
So he's referring to that article that Seymour Hersh wrote where he said that about the Nord Stream pipeline, who actually blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. So he's referring to that article. And after that article was released, some of these journalists from the New York Times and Washington Post and the LA Times, they smeared Seymour Hersh. By the way, Seymour Hersh is a renowned journalist. He was also the one that covered the massacre that happened in Vietnam. So he also uncovered stories about Richard Nixon. This is not someone that just became a journalist a year ago. He's very much admired and I would say beloved in journalism space for his investigative journalism. But all of a sudden, because he was talking about the Nord Stream pipeline in a way that mainstream media was not allowed to do so, and he's independent, the mainstream media outlets decided to attack Seymour Hersh. So the question that Jose had is, if this is a journalist event, why isn't Seymour Hersh here? Why aren't you giving him the opportunity to respond in reference to the article that he wrote? And then also, why aren't you guys willing to respond for the smear tactics that you did and the narrative that you had about not just the Ukraine war, but other wars in general?
All of you are executive editors of papers that broke Pentagon, My Lai, Watergate. Is this the same papers or not? I mean, is there anything you've gotten right in the last 20 years, or am I mistaken about that? I mean, it's just kind of funny because Iraq, wrong. Syria, wrong. Russiagate, really wrong. Okay, I mean, the list goes on and on. So the last thing you could do to try and actually fix your reputation is acknowledge that through leaks, we had to find out that Zelensky was going to bomb Moscow on the anniversary. I mean, if you're so impartial, shouldn't you at least say, right, that Zelensky was going to bring us on the verge of World War III? That seems pretty fair. While Julian Assange rots in prison, all of you got, fat checks because he's in jail for doing your job. And you know what? Tucker Carlson ain't no Seymour Hersh, but he did something you guys are scared to do. Speak the truth and actually be critical of the war, which is why he was actually fired from Fox, because you are all cowards, every single one of you. None of you have actually had any relevancy. And you know what? The mainstream press is now dying.
Let's pause at that point right there where he says the mainstream press is dying. It's true. I mean, when you work for the mainstream news outlets, the problem is you have an editor. And whatever story you write or you think you're writing, the editor has to approve it. And if the editor doesn't approve it, it doesn't get through. This is why some people have left mainstream media and decided to be independent, because they don't want their words censored, right? They don't want to have to go through editors to say what they need to say. This is why Substack, I think, is so valuable, right? So these are important points that he's bringing up. And it is true. Mainstream press is dying. And by the way, they're all aware of this. The Rachel Maddows, right? Like they're all aware that mainstream media is dying. That's why they are all writing books. You notice this? They're finding other ways to make money, but more people are willing to seek out independent media because they want the truth. They don't want a narrative that is spoon-fed to them.
Nobody's ever going to listen to you again. You have no credibility with the public. The only people who care about what you have to say are elite assholes who have nothing productive to say anymore, and it's dying off. So will you at least say something, either about Nord Stream or Ukraine or the fact that Zelensky brought us to the verge of World War III, and the only reason we knew about that was through leaks? Go ahead. It's a free speech event, right? You guys are the press. Let's say something here. Mr. Khan, come on. You're the executive editor of the New York Times,
So what you have to understand is, like, these people sitting up on the stage, these are not your, working class, beat journalist. Things are different now. Like now, to get those positions, to get a position at the New York Times or especially the Washington Post, you have to come from like this elite background. Either you got to come from the elite schools, you got to know somebody in there. Maybe your parent worked for that outlet or something like that. Like you already have to have those connections. And it's really hard for people that have gone to public universities to get those positions at those networks now. And I think that's what people have to understand. Like these people are well off. These are not the people going knocking on doors and saying, hey, can I get a story from? These people are well off, and they are used to speaking to people that are in the similar situations that they're in. They're used to being in those types of circles. So when someone like Jose stands up and says what he says, like, notice how they're not even trying to push back. They're not actually denying anything that he's saying. They're just sitting there. They're comfortable.
I'm just trying to get into some good trouble here, man. Woo. Listen, Karen, get out of my face for a second. I got to talk to these gentlemen. Okay. Well, I just want to hear what they have to say. Go ahead. I'm done.
Wait your turn. Wait your turn.
You're not going to tell them to you. Come.
Wait your turn.
You could project if we can't.
I would just say, I think it's important to hear everybody's point of view.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
All right.
I do think that we need to give our moderator a chance to ask other questions.
We're on the verge of World War III.
We're not doing that. Also do so.
Let's go.
Really, thank you.
Say something about this bombing. We blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Listen, don't stand there while there are people rotting in prison. Nobody said anything about Uhuru, right? The socialists who are in jail for being critical of this war. God damn it.
Let's go.
At least say something about the people in jail for being critical of this war. They don't deserve to be in prison right now.
You know, it's interesting to me too, because a lot of times you'll see that the liberal media, the liberal outlets, they claim they care so much about Black people and Black lives, but they didn't say anything about the Uhuru movement, those members being arrested and interrogated by the DOJ. Not one word. I think the only person I remember covering was Tucker Carlson, of all people. But now we're going to fast forward to present tense, and we're going to see Jose is at it again. And this time he is actually confronting Rachel Maddow, Miss Rusher Gator herself. It says, my friend Russell Dobler, how do you say Russell's last name? Dobler? Russell Dobler. And I confronted neocon Maddow at her book reading event. I was dragged on the ground for speaking the truth about her being a warmonger and the truth about ethnic cleansing in Gaza by the Israelis and how she's getting it wrong, just like in 2016. And I'm going to show you some of those times when she got it wrong. Listen to this.
Rachel, I'd rather not listen to your boring book because you are here to get Israel wrong yet again. Just like you got 2016 wrong yet again. All you are is the biggest warmonger.
So let's go back. So he said, Rachel, I would rather not sit here and listen to your boring book. So like I said, Rachel Maddow is on a book tour. This is what she's doing. She's going into this venue and she's speaking to these people. And I want you to pay attention to the crowd. Because I want you to see, this is who listens to this stuff. Look at the crowd. Look. How many younger, look who's in the crowd. How many younger people are in the crowd besides Jose? Right? So you see, this is going to show you again who's actually engaged with mainstream media these days, right? There's not a lot of younger people that are paying attention to people like Rachel Maddow, but I loved it because he started off and said, I don't want to listen to your boring book.
Rachel, I'd rather not listen to your boring book because you are here to get Israel wrong yet again. Just like you got 2016 wrong yet again.
What's interesting to me is that some of the people in the crowd, particularly the older people, some of these people were around for Woodstock. Some of them were around for like the hippie days, like, you know, peace, love, and sleep with whatever and whoever you want. Some of them were around for those days and some of them participated in those things. And it's interesting that now it's like, oh my God, you saw the look on the woman's face. She was like, oh, thinking to herself, like, how dare he stand up and say such things? No, don't even try, boo, because I saw some of the videos from the 60s and the early 70s, and some of you were having a lot of fun. A little too much fun, more fun than me. Okay. It's funny how people forget, like, as they get older. And now, so you see some of those people that came from like that era that were around for like Woodstock and Be Free and Free Your Mind and all that jazz. Now, like, as they've gotten older, it's like some of them have become really like prudish and elite It's like, what happened to you, man? What happened to peace, love, and let everything be free?
All you are is the biggest warmonger. You and the rest of the media are the biggest warmongers ever. Why is it that other countries are calling for peace? Brazil, Russia, India, and China all call for peace.
It's all boomers up in this thing, man. Look at the crowd. Look at the crowd. So he's saying, like, why aren't you ever calling for peace? All you do is push and promote war.
From the United Nations. And what do? You're just a big, ugly face. You're a warmonger. All of you are just straight warmongers. That's right. Look at what they do to free speech. There's an ethnic cleansing in Gaza, and all you do is tell lies about it. You and the rest of the media are warmongers. Every single one of you are all warmongers.
Bye-bye.
Look at this. You see how they dragged Jose out? You see how they
I don't know, but I had a feeling when we were talking about somebody was not happy about something. Thanks for
And this is the other thing. Why are there thrones for chairs? What the hell is this shit? What is this? Is this a chair or is this a throne? Oh boy.
He was one of the most successful and celebrated industrialists on the planet.
You see, because they think that people like Rachel Maddow, they think that this woman's like golden, you know, like they think like, oh my God, it's Rachel Maddow from MSNBC. We need to go hear about her book. Now, it wasn't just Jose, because Russell also spoke out. If this isn't Ben Stiller, it sure as hell looks like Ben Stiller. It does look like him. Did Russell say anything about? No, he didn't say who it was. Okay, but here's Russell. Now he interrupts.
Beyonce. Rachel, would you consider Benjamin Netanyahu an authoritarian foreign leader?
Sit down.
Can you please answer that?
We're not here to
Would you
talk to
consider Netanyahu a dangerous authoritarian foreign leader?
Is that Ben Stiller? That does look like Ben Stiller, right? What's that, Jay? That is him, Sabby. I thought that was him. Why is he there? Like, what is this? Oh my God. Do you see what I mean? This is what I was saying. Like, a lot of people in mainstream media, they're so out of touch with everyday people. They're out of touch with the working class. Rachel Maddow's up here sipping coffee or tea, whatever's in that mug, with Ben Stiller, and avoiding the everyday people who have legitimate questions about her work as a commentator on MSNBC. I'm not going to say journalist. Legitimate questions. This is look who they in company with. A hot mess. And she'll never answer the questions because she won't get the opportunity to write another book.
Authoritarian foreign leader. Will you answer that? Will you stand up for the Muslim anchors at MSNBC who have been...
That's the part they don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about, and look, I got many criticisms of Mehdi Hasan, but they don't want to talk about Mehdi Hasan and the other two journalists that their shows have just basically just kind of fallen off the air. And MSNBC thought that people wouldn't notice that, and people did notice it. That's your network, Rachel. You don't have anything to say about your colleagues basically being silenced?
Muslim anchors at MSNBC who have been taken off the air. Will you speak for them? Will you speak up for them? What do you call a country that bombs people in a hospital? Is that fascism? Do you only see fascism when it's wearing a red hat? Yeah.
So that's a good question. Do you only see fascism when it's wearing a red hat? Because I would say silencing those commentators on MSNBC, isn't that a form of fascism? Not allowing these people to speak, just basically making them disappear, and as if nobody would notice. As vocal as Mehdi Hasan is, you think people really would not notice? Now we're going to look at the present and we're going to go to the past, because here is Rachel Maddow here in this interview, which is on MSNBC, but a different commentator. And they're interviewing her again. I told you she's going around promoting this book. They're talking to her about Gaza. And listen to this.
I wish you were sitting here, not me. It's so fraught. It's so heartbreaking. You think about everything that you hear. I take Mary Eisen's point. I think she's still with us, that these are the images that a terrorist nation wants out there. I take John Hudson and Rapp's point that, John Hudson's reporting that 6,000 bombs have been dropped on a teeny space, tons of civilians there in harm's way, put in harm's way by Hamas. And I wonder what your sort of thoughts are about how we sift through this.
Well, I think if you look at.
So notice she said civilians put in harm's way, right? Okay, listen to this.
What's happened at that hospital? There is nobody there's nobody among us. There's nobody in the civilized world who would want to happen what happened to that hospital.
Let me debunk that. Okay, let me tell you how she lied. It's happened before. This isn't the first time where they've bombed hospitals. It's happened before. So it's interesting to me the way that I've heard like some of the commentators discuss this issue as if this is the first time this has happened. It's not the first time it's happened.
To have a place where it's an operating hospital. This is a place where there's patients there, there's wounded people there, in addition to people sheltering there. Now, why did that happen at that hospital? We don't know. And I think we can't underscore that enough. We have a clear assertion from the Israeli side. We do not categorically target hospitals. And we have a counter explanation as to what the strike could have caused that strike. Mm-hmm.
So she's lying again. I just told you it's happened before. People like Rachel Maddow, they're just a mouthpiece for the State Department. That's why they're in those positions. Her and that woman in the red, whoever she is, that's why they're in those positions. That's why they can have those jobs. That's why she can go do this book tour. Her, Anderson Cooper, that couple, Joe and Mika, whoever the hell they are, on Morning Joe. These people they're just mouthpieces. There's a reason why there's a reason why the furthest left voice that you will actually see in liberal media is Mehdi Hassan. And even Mehdi Hassan will tell you to vote for Joe Biden. You see what I mean? They only want to go so far. They only want to go so far. You look at someone like Mark Lamont Hill, who actually is a socialist. He used to work at CNN. The moment he had that interview about Israel and Palestine, and he pushed back on the rhetoric, gone. CNN was like, you got to go. So the furthest left voice that you have now in liberal media is Mehdi Hassan. And like I said, even he'll tell you to vote for Joe Biden.
It's Palestinian Islamic Jihad, a misfired rocket essentially that was targeted at Israel and somehow hit that hospital instead. On the other side, we've got Palestinian authorities saying, no, this was an Israeli airstrike. We cannot lose sight of the fact that in the Gaza Strip, the government is Hamas. There isn't a governing authority that we're able to appeal to here that may have a more neutral understanding of this than the entity that launched those terrorist attacks in Israel last weekend, and that is at war with Israel right now. And so, that's.
Notice how she talks about appealing to people. So she said that we are able to appeal to. My push on this is I've been saying from day one, and I've said with other conflicts as well, the United States government shouldn't be making any decisions at all in reference to this. This should not be a U.S. government issue, but it is, because the U.S. likes to poke their nose in places where it doesn't really belong and where they're not always welcome. But they feel like it's their right to do so. And because the U.S. government does have that allyship with Israel. But even when they don't have an allyship with the country, they still intervene when it's really not their place to do so. So this whole idea of people, that government is not willing to negotiate or with us. What do you mean with us? Because the conflict is not, this is again, what I've said before about people having this idea that the U.S. government is the U.S. government's role to tell other countries what they can and cannot do. and to tell other countries which leaders they can and cannot have.
That's why I asked Raf that question about whether or not U.S. intelligence has anything substantive to add to the factual understanding here. When you look at protests breaking out in the West Bank and outside the Israeli embassy in Amman, as our last guest was just telling us, and indeed in lots of places in the region right now, those protests are breaking out because of the perception that this was a deliberate Israeli airstrike targeting that hospital on purpose.
The protests broke out before the hospital attack. There were already protests before the hospital attack. This is what she's leaving out. I showed you guys this the past couple of days, all the protests that were happening over the world. Now, don't you think it's interesting that there are all of these, the global protests that have been happening on behalf of no genocide for the Palestinian people? Don't you think it's interesting that you don't see that same global movement backing Israel? And this is not to say there aren't some out there protesting. There are counter protests as well, but nothing like on the scale what you've seen of those who are out there fighting for the Palestinian people. Don't you think that says something, guys? That says that the world sees what's happening. The world is well aware of what's going on. And the world also sees that the U.S. government, even with a Democrat president, is willing to back and defend and protect a far right-wing leader in Israel. And this is the push that I would give. If you're one of those people where you're on the fence, you don't really know where you fit in this equation, you don't know what side you're on, or you're on the fence in reference to voting. If you're trying to decide whether or not you feel like you need to vote for Joe Biden because you might get Trump, I told you they're both corporate. I told you they're both corrupt. Here's something I want you to think about. Regardless if it is Biden or Trump that's in office at this point in time, both presidents would be backing the state of Israel. Both presidents would be defending Netanyahu and would be backing Netanyahu. We've already seen both of them do it. Now, this is where third parties come in. When people tell me there's no other option, there are other options. So if this is an important issue to you, that's something to think about. That's something to think about. Now, and then there's also this other thing that I want to address as well. When we talk about the protests that are happening across the world, mainstream media is losing their grip on the narrative with this particular conflict. And I've never seen anything like this before in reference to wars this early on, because even when it came to the Iraq war, some people got it right early in the beginning, but for the most part, most people didn't. Right? Most people didn't. That's just a reality. When it came to Russia and Ukraine, a lot of people were wrong in the beginning, but more people, I think, even have woken up to that. But this is the first one that I've seen within my adult life where people have caught on right from the beginning. And I think mainstream media doesn't know what to do with that. They have lost the plot. They're like, holy crap, what do we do? What do we do about the letter that was written by the Harvard students? How could these kids think this way? We're not controlling them enough. They're actually starting to use their freaking brains. Why are all these people out protesting in the street? What are they doing? What are they talking about? How could this have happened? It happened because people started moving away from mainstream media because you guys have lied about several conflicts, including the Iraq war. It happened because more people have started to seek out independent media. And it happened because guess what, boo? Back in my day, back when I was growing up, and particularly when I was in college, we did not have a Facebook. We didn't have social media. And now people are able to see these images instantly and not wait for the news to try to twist it and bend it into whatever pretzel they want it to be to fit the State Department narrative. That's what's happening. And they don't know what to do. They can't handle it. They don't know what to do. Listen, one of my students told me this before. They said, everything that I learned in this program, no offense to you or anything, but I could have learned all of this on the internet for free. One of my students told me that. I was like, well, damn. But I couldn't be mad at them because the reality is it's true. Everything that they learned in that program, they actually could have just learned via Google and for cheaper. They don't know how to get a handle on it.
You have to believe, we as humans have to believe that the truth matters. We do not want that to be true. Israel says that was not true. An investigation needs to be done to find out if it was true. But you have to believe, you can't say it doesn't matter what the truth is here. And you can't say the street will erupt no matter what, regardless of what the truth is here. The truth does matter. It's the only thing that we have. It's the only way that we can be morally held accountable for our actions.
We're going to stop it there. I can only take so much of her, and I got to show you a past video. So she said that the truth does matter, coming from someone who lied about Russiagate for years. And I want to take you to another lie that she told. Now, this was in reference to the Rage Against the War Machine rally. So after this event, I went on to Rising to talk about it. Of course, Rachel Maddow was one of the first to smear the rally. Here she is lying again. I told you, she's just a paid mouthpiece.
And I mean, truly random rally on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. A rally in support of Russia, I guess, with all.
No, that was the first lie. The rally was not in support of Russia. Yes, there were some people with Russia flags. There were people with all different kind of flags. Also saw Ukraine flags. The rally was to call for peace, to get us out of this conflict, to move us further away from the possibility of a World War III. That's what the rally was about. Unlike Rachel, I was actually there. I covered the event. You can see it on my channel. So I know what the rally was about. That was the first lie. She goes on.
Given all the Russian flags, at least a rally against the U.S. supporting Ukraine in trying to stand up against the Russian invasion of their country.
That's another lie. It was not against the U.S. support of Ukraine to stand up against the Russian invasion. It was for a call for peace.
A tiny event. It was small. It was a weird assemblage of Americans. There were Proud Boys there.
If it was a tiny event and if it was small, then why were you covering it on MSNBC? She goes on to say there were Proud Boys there. I didn't see no Proud Boys there. And I was right there in the center where the media space was, so I could see the entire crowd.
For some of the white supremacist groups you'd recognize from the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville a few years ago, also represented prominently the remains of the bizarre Lyndon LaRouche cult. There were a lot of people with Russian flags, also the occasional flag of the former Soviet Union.
There weren't a lot of people with Russian flags. I only saw 2 Russian flags, and I also saw Ukraine flags. And those who have the flags from the Soviet Union, if I remember correctly, I believe this was Caleb Maupin's group that brought those flags. And they actually did, which they bring to every event that they have, but they did actually apologize after the fact, after they were criticized for this.
Also, at least one person who guest hosts for Tucker Carlson on the Fox News channel was there as a featured speaker.
So she pretends like she doesn't know Tulsi Gabbard's name. She just says someone who guest hosts for Tucker Carlson. It was just stuff like this. It was just,
There were anti-vaccine conspiracy theorists, a lot of them. There were cryptocurrency promoters. It was a really weird group. It was a small.
How do you know there's a lot of them? Like, that was the part that really, she wasn't even there. But this is what Rachel does best. Lies, lies, and lies. So yeah, I went on to Rising to talk about that because that was just it was a hot mess. But with mouthpieces like Rachel Maddow, this is how the narrative doesn't change. And that's why we said you need that movement on the outside to shake things up. And that's what you see happening now. Valerie, Sabby Sabs, my mom loves you. We both do. Bless and thank you for what you do, sister. Thank you so much, Valerie. That's really sweet. Thank you, P. Smith. Abby Hoffman killed himself because his buddies sold out. I don't know, Abby P. You'll have to let me know about who this person is. But thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the super sticker, Nelson. Miss Pamela says, Nicole Wallace equals woman in red dress. Thank you, Miss Pamela. Thank you for the super chat, Perry. Did you see Jewish Americans demonstrating for Palestine in the halls of Congress yesterday? We're getting into that story, Perry. We're getting there, Perry. And thank you for the super chat, P. Smith. Rachel Maddow was born on April Fool's Day. I kid. I don't know. Really interesting. Okay. We're going to get into this next story about Marjorie Taylor Greene. And for those who are not aware, it hasn't just been obviously people that are not Jewish that are protesting, saying, stop genocide. There are also people who are Jewish that have been protesting the same thing. One group known as Jewish Voices for Peace, they've been very vocal about this. They have a hashtag trending going around called Not in Our Name because they do not want, this to be on their hands, like what's happening to the Palestinian people. So they actually held a protest the other day in the halls of Congress. And Chuck Modi was there on the scene like he usually is doing the damn thing. He said, Jewish protesters for a free Palestine flood rotunda of the Cannon building, demanding ceasefire, chanting, not in our name. And this is something that really made Marjorie Taylor Greene angry. And I'm going to get into that in just a second. So as you can see there, right? So they have up the signs that say ceasefire again, calling for peace. But that has been a controversial thing as of late. Have you noticed that? Like, even if you call for peace with Russia and Ukraine, that's a problem, right? Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene decided to go live on Twitter yesterday while this was happening. And she's calling this an insurrection. And what she's trying to do is make the comparison to this between like what happened January 6th. Now, at first, I just thought, okay, she's just trolling or she's trying to make a point, that kind of thing. But she actually went pretty far with this. I'm going to show you how far she went with this. Like, I thought that she is serious. But let's get into this here. I want to make sure I pull it up. There we go. All right, listen to, here she goes. Uh-oh, we got to redo this again. This is Twitter for you. Hold on. Sometimes the Twitter videos just, or X, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, so we have an insurrection happening in the Cannon building. This is the march outside, the pro-Palestinian march going on outside. And then we have this happening inside of our building. I'm going to take you guys down so you can see what's happening on the third floor. Literally, they've come in and taken over. This is insanity.
So let's stop here. So she said they came in and took over, right? So isn't this a police officer? Right? I mean, it's not, you see, there's police officers here, right? Okay, let's continue. I mean, where I come from, this is called a church service. Like, for real. I'm just keeping it real. If you ever go to, if you've never been to church in the South, okay, you go to church, especially down South, like this is what I call church. If you went to my mom's church, this is it. Everybody jamming. And how is she in danger? She's not in danger, right? Okay, let's continue.
This is where the press does all their hits. Of course they know what they're doing. They always know what they're doing.
So from what I can tell, no one is in danger. People are standing in a circle. They're chanting, they're singing. Like I said, this just reminds me, this is like a church service. Eric said if church was that cool, I might have gone once in a while. Yeah, man, we be jamming. We be jamming. I'm gonna tell you, we be jamming. Because like my mom's church, like especially like when I was growing up, like my mom's church, like they have like guys played electric guitar, they got the drums, they got everything. Like it's a concert. It is a concert. I brought a friend to church with me one time when I was in high school, and she was scared. Like she was Catholic, and she wasn't used to that. And so I did try to warn her. I say, just let you know, my mom's church is going to be more lively than what you're used to. And I had been to mass before, so I tried to warn her. Maybe I didn't warn her enough. And I'll just speed it up here. So again, like I said, looks like what our pastor used to call song and worship, right? And now here's the protesters outside. Again, these are all these are Jewish voices, right? Coming out to protest. And I'm just fast forwarding because most of this she's just like showing outside. And then I think it froze there. But you guys get the point, right? Let me pause that. So you get the point. So so she goes further, right? Apparently she has a screenshot here of someone's cell phone, which looks very much Photoshopped to me. Like, I can't make this up. She says, I think this is supposed to be global intifada. It's an Arabic rebellion and uprising. Photo of one of the insurrectionist phones. These people are not for peace. Now, look at the phone, guys. Now, look at this. Now, I don't know about you. I'm going to go in a little bit further so you can see. Does this text looks Photoshopped to you? So it says, this doesn't even look real. So people were picking on her about this. They thought it was Photoshop, right? It says, back of the rally, trying to find you, back right if you face rally. Back of the rally next to the dirt path, walk straight back from Polish hot dog stand. So it sounds like to me, this is obviously someone trying to find another person at the rally. But what people were pointing out is that this looks Photoshop. It doesn't look like it's real. So let me come out of here, make that a little bit smaller. Okay. So you see that. Now, here's the other part. Then she says at FBI. Now, and I'm thinking to myself, the same FBI that MTG said abolish, that she wants to abolish the FBI. Now you want the FBI? I can't make this up, man. I can't make this up. This is why some people don't take her seriously. Yeah, she may make some good statements in reference to the funding, the wars, that kind of thing every now and then. But then, like I said, all you have to do is change the countries from Russia and Ukraine to Israel and Palestine, or you throw in China and they flip. So there's more. So here's another video. Oh boy, I got to tell you. So she said, watch Tlaib's aggressive insurrectionists come at me in Canaan today. So she's talking about Rashida Tlaib. After Hamas murdered and kidnapped innocent Israelis, this anti-Semite screams, let Gaza live, and claims, I have blood on my hands. Now, the Jewish people who are there were also saying, let Gaza live as well. So you see why she doesn't make any sense. Now Biden wants to give $100 million to Gaza to fund more Hamas terrorism. This shit is insane because she came out in support. She said on video that she supports Israel and standing by Israel and doing whatever we can do to help them. Now, she's against that for Ukraine, but she's not consistent. And this is the problem I think that people have with her. They're like, what you on today? So watch this video. Check this out.
These people are not for peace. You can tell it's the same kind of movement that started with BLM, and it'll be the same kind of violent movement later on. They don't.
She said these people down here, by the way, those are Jewish people. So she said these people down here, she said they're not for peace. You can tell by the way they're chanting, they're going to be the same violent movement as BLM. Now let's talk about the hypocrisy. Because she was one of the people that defended January 6th, right? She defended that. People climbing up walls of the, I'm sorry, I'm still laughing. People climbing up raw walls of the building. Like she defended that. And this is what I want to point out to you. Just because someone may be right on one issue, that doesn't mean they're consistent with that issue. What do I mean by that? Change the groups, change the organizations, change the parties, and all of a sudden their position changes. You see, it was okay when you had Trump supporters climbing walls and all that shit. That was okay. But now when you have Jewish people down there saying, not in our name, clapping, chanting, that kind of thing. Now, all of a sudden, these are violent people. Because see, when it's on the other side, it's a problem. Not being consistent is an issue. So when you see these types of statements made, I want you to ask yourself this question. Who are they defending? So for people like MTG that defended January 6th, who were the protesters at January 6th defending? They were defending Donald Trump, right? So they were defending her party. Who are the Jewish Voices for Peace? Who are they defending? Who are they standing up for right now? They're standing up for the Palestinian people saying, no genocide, not in our name, let Gaza live. They're standing up for a group of people that doesn't exactly coalesce with the Republican Party. They're standing up for people who are Muslim. That's why she can say those things about Black Lives Matter organizers. She can say they're violent. She can say the Jewish Voices for Peace are violent because that's against her party. That's against what she wants within her party and the party values. Now, this goes back to this question. Do we need to abolish all political parties? Because this is what continues to happen. People get pigeonholed within their party. And so they may be right on one issue, but once that issue is now a threat to their party and the political beliefs of their party, now they're against it. And I wonder how people would actually feel. I wonder what we would get from politicians, the words out of their mouths, if we did not have political parties. So let me continue here, but that's what she said. See,
it'll be the same kind of violent movement later on. They don't want peace.
So
they want
Gaza live. Let Gaza live. Let Gaza live. Murderers go home. Murderers go home. Let Gaza live. Let Gaza live. Let Gaza live. End the genocide. End the genocide. End the genocide. End the genocide instead of funding it. Blood is on your hands. Gaza's blood is on your hands. Gaza's blood is on your hands. Gaza's blood is on your hands. Let Gaza live.
Now, if they were really considered to be that much of a threat, you got a police officer here. You got a police officer right over here. Says Capitol Police on the back of the baseball cap. Looked like he was just chilling to me. What do you guys think? So this goes further. You know, there were people that were arrested But I want to show you this because Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote a letter about this as well. Yes, she wrote a letter. It says, new Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene demands preservation of all records and video related to today's insurrection. And it goes on to say, dear Chief Manager, I am formally requesting that the U.S. Capitol Police preserve all video surveillance footage, photographic evidence, police reports, and arrest records from all House office buildings on October 18th, 2023. So that was yesterday. The group that organized the insurrection, Jewish Voice for Peace, is a pro-Islamic, anti-Semitic group. Let me pause. The name of the group is Jewish Voices for Peace. These are people who are Jewish. Both of these parties have co-opted the word anti-Semitic and they use it for their narrative when need be. They change it to what they want it to be to fit their narrative. This shit don't make no sense. I got to tell you, I'm careful with the language. I'm trying to get better about that. That seeks the destruction of the state of Israel according to the Anti-Defamation League. So Anti-Defamation League. So if you watch the interview I did with Katie Halper earlier today, Katie brought up the ADL. And the ADL is another one of these organizations where she said, again, they have like these lobbyists, they have these politicians like ADL, AIPAC, they have lobbyists, they have politicians in their back pocket, and they promote the Zionism rhetoric. So what is Marjorie Taylor Greene doing? And who is she getting money from? That's something we need to look into. I'm going to have to pull that up. It goes on to say, by launching an insurrection in the Capitol complex, these actors caused elevators to be shut down, staircases and hallways to be blocked. Didn't that same thing happen during January 6th? So it goes on to say exits to be made inaccessible and official legislative business to be obstructed, putting members of Congress, their staff, and Capitol visitors at risk. It seemed like you were walking around freely to me. Remember, she was live streaming on Twitter. She was walking down. She walked down the stairs. Looks like she walked up the stairs. Looked like you were free to move as can be. And then she goes on to say the Committee on House Administration must investigate this incident and review all footage and evidence provided by Capitol Police, and the insurrectionists involved must be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And that's signed by her. It's amazing, isn't it? I want to pull up her funding. Because I remember when she was on Rising with the interview with Bree, she said that she doesn't take big money. So let's see. Let's see what she got going on here. I haven't gone on to Open Secrets in a while, so it's one of those moments that we're going to have to, let's do the damn thing. All right, here we go. Let me pull this up here. Let's see where she's getting her money from. This is 2024. So she coming up again for 2024. So let's go to, let's look at contributors. I'm sorry, it's kind of funny. Save America, Stop Socialism PAC. Sorry about that. Anyway, let's get serious. Let's do this by, do I want to do it by, oh, no, largest amount. Okay, let's see who she getting money from. I hope you guys can see this pretty well. I think I got it pretty big on here. Okay, yeah, you can. Indexed Energy Services. Let's see. Uline. I'm not familiar with Uline is. I'll have to look them up. Bill Luke Chrysler Jeep Dodge, House Freedom Fund, Veggie Fresh Farms, Conifer Pacific Inc. I'm looking to see, she get money from SpaceX. I'm sorry. This is funny. Okay, InFact, Cedar Hill Farm, Pencore Services. Let's keep looking here. American Airlines. Let me go back up. Let's see if there's PACs. There is that Save America Stop Socialism PAC. I can't even believe that's the name of a PAC. Oh, campaign committee only. Let's go back. 2022. Follow the money. Save America Stop Socialism PAC. That just cracks me up. So for her 2022 election, she really was getting money for SpaceX, for real. No, she really was getting money from SpaceX. Uline sells business and office supplies. Interesting. House Freedom Fund. DTS Inc., South Carolina. Majority Committee PAC. Burger Busters. J.W. Childs Association. That one I might have to look at. Archer Auto Group. Textile, Rubber, and Chemical Company. I'm just looking to see. What's this about? Lobby firm. Okay, let me click on. I'm curious about this J.W. Childs. J.W. Childs Associates. Okay, they mainly give to Republicans. And it says, okay, who are you? No, I need to find out who you are. Summary. Well, you got a lot of money. No, that's not telling me who you are. And that bothers me. Let me go over here. J.W. Childs Associates. Investment firm. J.W. Childs Associates LP is a 28-year-old investment firm with a long history of private equity investing that is today focused on venture capital investments in biotechnology, pharmaceuticals, and biotech. That's them. We're not going to go through all of them, but I was curious. What I was actually looking for, I was looking to see if she was getting money from APAC. Let's go to PACs. Political action committees, $42,000. Energy and natural resources is the negative for that one. Labor and ideological single issue. Let me see something else. All right, let me go to ideological single issue. Okay. Republican, conservative leadership PACs. Okay. It doesn't look like she's getting any money, because that's what I wanted to check and see if she was getting money from APAC, but it doesn't look like she is. But no, this J.W. Child Associates, these people, investment firm. I'll show this one and then that was kind of fun. I haven't done Open Secrets in a while. J.W. Childs Associates, it says here that they are a 28-year-old investment firm with a long history of private equity investing that is today focused on venture capital investments in biotechnology, pharmaceutical, and healthcare consumer products. We invest in a variety of ways: direct investments in companies, co-investments along external managers, and investments in the funds of investment managers that we regard as partners. Interesting. Got to check those things. But yeah, it's the hypocrisy of it all for me, guys. But it's interesting. Always fun times in Congress, right? Always fun times. I'll take that comment on Rockfin, Eric. Boop, boop, be-doop. Thank you so much for the comment on Rockfin, Roger. Yes, you can say it is the democratization of media, but all of that would have meant anything if It was not for their birth of the smartphone. The first smartphone, iPhone, is now 16 years old, is a 16-year-old teenager that's thinking for itself now. Watch out, people. In a few years, they'll be moving out of mommy and daddy's home and becoming independent. Whoa. And thank you for this tip as well. I had customers ask me if I study poli-sci or constitutional law. I was like, I actually went to school for information technology, but don't waste your money and time with that getting into debt over learning something that you could learn during your own, which is what I did. I think Marjorie was hoping for the other reaction. Just kidding. Sabby, just kidding. Jokes, Sabby, jokes. All right, let's go to some of these comments over here. Plant Powered Radio. I bet she got into, I'm going to say crap. I bet she got into crap for the photo op with Code Pink. That's something I was wondering too, if that's why she's, I don't know. Thank you for the super chat. Duly noted. One of the press members was clapping her hands. Ah, you noticed that. Thank you, Ruby. Sabby, thank you so much for covering and informing us. I admire you so much. Me and my guy watch you all the time. Keep it up. Fight the fight. Thank you so much, Ruby. That's really sweet. Shout out to my comrade JB, says, Sabby, here we see MTG being AOC for Halloween. That would be funny. Wouldn't it be? Oh my God. Wouldn't it be funny if AOC dressed up as Marjorie Taylor Greene and Marjorie Taylor Greene dressed up as AOC? Thank you, Roger. Sounds like your friend got haunted by the Holy Ghost. Thank you, Jamal. I hope those protesters don't get 15 plus years behind bars like some of those J6 guys did. I don't think they will. Thank you, Courtney. I'm the opposite of your student. The things I learned about politics, I learned from you and the rest of independent media. Oh, wow. Thanks, Courtney. Thank you, Perry. MTG's anti-Palestine racism flows from the same racism that killed Black people for generations, more so than the elite racism that Maddow represents. And thank you, Roger. Sabs, scroll down to source of funds. 73% of her funding does come from small dollars. She did say most of her funding came from small dollars on the Rising thing, but I still wanted to check. Okay, we are moving on to our next story. Before we do so, if you haven't had a chance, go ahead and smash that like button. That helps me out with the algo. Thank you very much. Kudos. This next story is a little bit different. It's a little bit of nostalgia for me, okay? A little bit of nostalgia. Those of you that grew up during that time when Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, that era, right? You know as well as I do that these people were huge at that point in time. Now, I don't know. I know there's some people in the chat that weren't born yet when they were really popular. But you got to understand, at that point in time, there wasn't a person that I knew that didn't like either NSYNC or Britney or didn't have like the posters or something of their memorabilia. Like they were huge. I loved NSYNC. I remember like my friend got the video. I'm showing my age here. My friend got the VHS. My friend got the VHS tape of Darren's dance groups. And Darren was a choreographer. And apparently it was brought to my attention that Darren actually had choreographed several dances for NSYNC songs and Backstreet Boys and all that stuff. And so one day Darren came out with a videotape to show you how to do the dances. So my friend had Darren's dance groups. We had like a big Darren's dance groups, like party get together kind of thing. And we were just like, ain't no lie, baby. Bye, bye, bye. So yeah, it was like, anyway, that was like a very fun time, especially for those who like to dance and if you were into pop music. Apparently something else happened during that time. And I want to get into that story. Now, for those who are not aware, Britney Spears actually just released a book. And that book has actually just broke record. Britney Spears has already broken the Guinness World Record for the fastest selling nonfiction book of all time, which was set by Prince Harry with 3 million copies in the first week. The Woman in Me has already sold 9 million in pre-orders alone. So pretty big, right? Pretty big. during that time, the time of NSYNC and Britney and all that stuff, at one point, if some of you remember, Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake had a relationship. It was a real relationship. Britney admits in this book, some people thought it was just for publicity at the time. But as she reveals in this book that it was real and she was very much in love with Justin Timberlake. But there's something else that actually just came out now that none of us knew back then. And I don't think if you even take me back to then that I could try to figure it out. We have to start with the fact that obviously the relationship ended. Now, Justin Timberlake kind of threw Britney Spears under the bus during that point in time, but this ain't the first time we watched him kind of just throw his counterpart or his comrade under the bus and run away. Let's go back to the Super Bowl show with Janet Jackson. But he said that she was unfaithful towards him, that she cheated on him, and that's why the relationship ended. But now that may not necessarily be the case, because in a recent story, what has been revealed from that book is that Britney Spears has said that during that time, during her relationship with Justin Timberlake, that she actually became pregnant. Let's get into it.
We're back now with a major revelation from pop icon Britney Spears.
In an excerpt from her new book called The Woman in Me, provided to People magazine, Spears said she had an abortion as a teenager after a pregnancy with Justin Timberlake. For more on this, let's bring in Callan Rosenblatt. She's NBC News' youth and internet culture reporter. Great to have you with us. Good morning, Callan. So this abortion bombshell is really what everybody is talking about so far in what we've seen from the book. What exactly does she say happened, and how does she feel about it now?
Good morning, Savannah and Joe. So Britney Spears talks about being deeply in love with Justin Timberlake at the time. And although they weren't really ready for this, she said she'd always anticipated starting a family with him and that they were going to share their futures together. So when he said that he wasn't ready to be a father, she said it was a really difficult decision for her. She said she has since agonized over this decision and that it's been a really big challenge for her. And fans are really empathizing with what she says in this book about being.
Let me pause there for just a second. So Britney Spears has revealed in this, I'm assuming, tell-all book that not only was she pregnant by Justin Timberlake during that time, but that she also had an abortion. And from what I have read and what you're going to see as well, it's very clear to me that she didn't want to do that. Now, you have to understand at that point in time, they were still young. Britney Spears was still a teenager when this happened. But what she's saying, what the commentator's saying here, when she said that Britney Spears has revealed that this has bothered her for all this time. I'm going to connect this to another story of another musician that went through a similar thing, that said it's been bothering them for years. I think it's different when, and I believe in a woman's right to choose. I think it's different when this is what you want to do. This is what you want to do. You know, this is just not the right thing for you. It's not the right time. Or there's other issues as well. That's different. But I think it's another thing when you don't want to do that and your partner says, I don't want to be a father. Take care of it. Again, we got to think about the time. She was still a kid. Let's continue.
Really conflicted about having this abortion after falling pregnant in her either early teens or her late teens or her early 20s.
And has Justin Timberlake responded at all to the book or to this claim?
People magazine had reached out to Justin Timberlake, but no reps have responded yet for him.
All right.
I have a response from him. We'll get to that in just a second.
So the Free Britney movement, of course, was a huge part of her being released from her conservatorship. How are they reacting to this revelation?
Yeah, so fans online are really heartbroken for Britney. They say, Justin Timberlake has in the past been under scrutiny for some of his treatment around Britney Spears or how some of that relationship shook out. So now fans are really reassessing some of the music from that time. They're saying they're really heartbroken over the song Cry Me a River. They feel like that might have been in poor taste. They're reassessing Britney Spears' old songs, the song Everything, and wondering if that possibly was about this really hard decision. Some are saying that they felt, the couple was very young at the time and that maybe this was for the best. But many people are expressing their heartbreak for Britney Spears having this decision to make and living with it afterward.
Let's pause here for just a second because there's something else that I want to bring up about those two songs. Let's remember, Justin Timberlake leaving NSYNC, starting his solo career. The song Cry Me a River, if you go back and watch the music video, the girl in the video looks like Britney. She's dressed like Britney Spears. It was very clear that the song was about Britney, and Justin made it seem like it was because of her infidelity. And that's clearly, if you're listening, that's what the song is about. But now it kind of seems like, now knowing what we know, that there was also an abortion that took place that she clearly did not want to do. Now it makes you wonder, was it really fair for Justin he basically profited off of that pain and convinced other people that it was just about the breakup and that song Cry Me a River about the cheating, when in actuality, there was something much more serious that was going on there. And listen, Justin's career took off from that. The song that she's referring to in reference to Britney called Every Time, where she talks about, her behavior causing her significant other pain. Now I look at that song a little bit differently because I thought that song was about her infidelity, and that made her spouse, which is Justin, that made her spouse, hurt. That hurt him. But now I look back at that song and I wonder, maybe that song was about the abortion. Very different.
No, also it sounds like Britney reached out to some fans through social media, responded to them, and said that she struggled to write this book. Tell us what we know that she's told some fans.
Yeah, so earlier in the summer, Britney Spears posted and said that she needed a lot of therapy to be able to write this book. And in a recent post, she even said that writing this book for her was almost like going back through a yearbook. Some memories were really happy and beautiful, and some were really painful. So this was delving back into deep wounds to be able to tell her story in her own words.
Let's pause there. So one thing I want to say in reference to the book, we got to remember Britney Spears didn't have control over her own life, over her own money. Like, she had to, as a grown woman, she had to ask for permission to even buy a scarf if she wanted to buy a scarf. Like, her dad controlled all of her money and her decisions. She couldn't even make business dealings on her own. It had to go through her dad as she was an adult. Imagine being a 40-year-old woman and you're not even allowed to make any decisions in reference to your financial decisions or what kind of jobs and stuff that you want to take as well. Now, Justin Timberlake did respond. And I want to show you this. I don't know why that's playing. Stop. There we go. Justin Timberlake did respond. It says that Justin Timberlake is focusing on his own family amid Britney Spears' book and abortion claim. I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are, Justin. Let me make this larger. Sorry. Let me go down. I made it too large. Okay. Okay, this site is weird. I can't do it like that. Stop the video. I hate these sites that play like videos. Okay, here we go. In 2021, Timberlake was vocal about his support for Spears during her conservatorship battle. In a series of tweets, the My Love singer stood in solidarity with his ex. After what we saw today, we should all be supporting Britney at this time, regardless of our past, good and bad, and no matter how long ago it was. Timberlake wrote, "What's happening to her is just not right. No woman should ever be restricted from making decisions about her own body." So that was him responding to her conservatorship battle. Kind of interesting, huh? He went on to say, "No one should ever be held against their will or ever have to ask permission to access everything they've worked so hard for. Jess and I send our love and our absolute support to Britney during this time. We hope the courts and her family make this right and let her live however she wants to live. So we know her conservatorship ended November of 2021. Now, let me fast forward here. Oh, whoops. I think I skipped ahead. Sorry about that, guys. Over the past 15 years, or even at the start of my career, I sat back while people spoke about me and told my story for me. After getting out of my conservatorship, I was finally free to tell my story without consequences from the people in charge of my life. So The Woman in Me is available for pre-order and is set to be released on October 24th. So what they said here, did I skip a part? I did skip a part. Okay, here it goes. Where am I? Yeah. Spears and Timberlake, 42, dated from 1999 to 2002. Inside of her highly anticipated memoir, the Not a Girl, Not Yet a Woman singer also writes about the first kiss she shared with Timberlake when they were kids, yada, yada. And then it goes on to say Timberlake went on to marry Jessica Biel. Together, they share sons Silas 8 and Phoenix 3. Spears and ex-husband Kevin Federline are parents to sons Sean Preston and the other one. I think I skipped a part, but it is what it is. But anyway, basically, oh, here it is. Sorry, guys. When I enlarged this, somehow some part of this was skipped. Okay, here's the response. A source tells me that with the upcoming release of Spears' memoir, the Crimea River singer is looking ahead. Justin has been focusing on his own family and trying not to concern himself with Britney's memoir. In recent years, Justin has tried to be supportive of Britney from a distance. They dated so long ago, but he still has respect for her. Justin and Jessica want everyone to grow and evolve instead of continuing to bring up the past. Yeah. And then she went on to say, it was a surprise, but for me, it wasn't a tragedy. So this is the difference here where she talks about finding out that she was pregnant. I love Justin so much. I was always expected us to have a family together one day. This would just be much earlier than I anticipated. Spears wrote about the pregnancy via People, but Justin definitely wasn't happy about the pregnancy. He said we weren't ready to have a baby in our lives, that we were way too young. Now, I want to make a connection here. This comment here. Neptune said this comment summed up the feelings towards Justin Timberlake after finding out what he's done to Britney Spears. Not Britney Spears says this issue isn't him not wanting to be a father. It's the timeline of it all. The abortion, the breakup, the every time video, and then him using the breakup and her trauma to absolutely catalyst his solo career when he knew she was suffering so much. The betrayal there is incredible. He should have used a condom if he wasn't ready. That's interesting. They were children, but they weren't. And they are both from the South where pregnancy young isn't uncommon. Look at Jamie Lynn. Britney would have wanted that baby, even if the trajectory of her career may have changed. That's trauma in itself. It's not that he didn't want to be a dad. He was honest. Is that he capitalized off of her pain, was silent during her imprisonment, and has just been a truly awful friend to her. Now, I want to make a connection with another person that this happened to that I feel like this isn't talked about much, but she mentioned it before. Similar situation. If you remember Chili from TLC, she came forward about this as well. Similar situation where she was young and she felt like she was pressured to. It says Rosonda Chili Thomas abortion story, which she once called one of the biggest mistakes. So let me scroll down here and get to that part. From the moment L.A. Reid and his then wife Pebbles formed TLC, they appointed producers Dallas Austin, Jermaine Dupri, and Marley Marl to work on the first album. Although Pebbles didn't want the girls to become involved with any producer, Chili and Dallas Austin started dating behind her back, and only the other girls knew about their relationship. However, even before TLC released their first album, 20-year-old Chili got pregnant. When Pebbles found out about it, she wanted to kick Chili out of the group and started looking for a replacement. According to Dallas Austin, he approached Pebbles on behalf of Chili and the other girls and asked her to reconsider the decision, explaining that not only was this the first record almost done, but Tion and Left Eye didn't want another girl in the group. A life-changing decision. According to Bossip, Chili, on the other hand, had decided not to have the baby and had an abortion for which Dallas allegedly paid $300. And that's Chili and Dallas Austin there. Years later, the singer confessed that the decision haunted her for almost a decade. I was so scared. I didn't know what to do and chose not to have it. She said in a VH1 interview, it was one of the biggest mistakes. Chili explained back then, being so young and with a music career ahead, she wondered how she could be a mom and deal with everything else at the same time. The singer explained that the experience changed her and she stopped being a strong person she'd always been. As she added, it messed me up. It broke my spirit. I felt like I gave in and I broke to what someone else wanted. I think that's supposed to be I gave in. Chili said she cried almost every day for nearly 9 years. And as a way of dealing with the guilt, she made it a resolution to have a baby with Dallas because the baby I didn't have was with him. So the point that I'm trying to make is this. This is another example of someone really young at that time, probably feeling kind of alone, not really wanting to make that decision. And Chili's been very, open and vocal about this. And notice it said that she cried for 9 years every day after that. The point that I'm trying to make is this. For the people saying, why is Britney bringing this up all these years later? When someone has an abortion, that's not something you forget about. You will always remember that. Britney will always remember that. Chili will always remember that. That stays with you. You don't just forget that you had an abortion. And what I want to link it to is this, the music industry at that point in time. A lot of the people, especially the women, were fairly young when they were coming into the music industry. It wasn't just Britney, it was Christina, it was Jessica Simpson. Jessica Simpson has come forward about some things that happened when she came in very young. And it just seems like there's a lot of guidance that's missing. Chili felt alone. Britney felt alone. So I think the thing is, the fact that Britney is writing this book, and I'm ready for the next part 2 when you're ready, Eric. The fact that Britney is writing this book, this is basically her first chance to actually tell people what actually happened in her life. And now she can do so because she doesn't have the conservatorship. Meanwhile, everybody else has been telling her story. So that's something to think about. But it does make people look at Justin Timberlake with a side eye. And I say this because look, I told you, Justin is known to run. When Justin was on the Super Bowl performance with Janet Jackson and they got in trouble because he went to go do the dance and then we all know her boob fell out and all that kind of stuff. It's like Janet Jackson received a lot of the blame and Justin Timberlake just basically tucked his tail between his legs and ran away. And she was the one blamed. She was the one who faced all the scrutiny. So that's something to think about. But I think everybody has the right, to tell their story, especially since if you've been prevented from doing so for such a long time. Going to go to some of the comments here. Thank you. Do all things with love. TIL, that complaints of anti-Semitism go through the DOJ, but complaints of Islamophobia go through National Security Council, you know, because Muslims are always presumed first to be terrorists. That's an interesting part. Interesting thing. Thank you, Snork. Prince Harry also has record of most in trash. Thank you, Roger. Unless he believes she did cheat and it wasn't his. I don't know. Thank you, M. Smith. Justin made 2 albums worth of songs about her. Everyone Britney ever met ate off of her. Sad. All right, we're going to get into our last story. And this one's about Briahna Joy Gray. So I don't know if you guys are aware of what's happening now, but it's not the first time. There is now a push, which seems to have been led by the Daily Beast and probably some other bots out there, those troll farm groups, to fire Briahna Joy Gray from The Hill Rising because of the discussion that her and Robbie have had in reference to Israel and Palestine. I kid you not. But this isn't the first time. Before we get into that, I want to take you back to a time when people were trying to get her kicked off of YouTube. They were trying to take down her Patreon. The NAFO trolls, they come after people. This was in reference to Russia and Ukraine. And when she interviewed this gentleman who basically sent a troll farm of NAFO trolls after her on Twitter, they were smearing her. People were sending her racist tweets. They were trying to take down her Patreon. They wanted her off of YouTube. They wanted her off of the platform. So this isn't the first time. So I want people to pay attention to this. But this was the first time that I remember. It was when she had this interview with this gentleman and he got upset. People got upset because she rolled her eyes. Listen to this.
They're stealing Ukrainian children. 500 just yesterday were shipped to Russia. And this is why we should be supporting them. We cannot allow this kind of evil to go unchecked, just on a basic moral reason. I mean, don't you agree with that?
I'm sorry, I don't. And here's why.
Why?
There are gangs that have overtaken Haiti. There is a cholera pandemic that was started by the UN. UN members raped Haitians. A third of Pakistan was underwater. Should we go, due to the climate crisis, should we go and invade China because Uyghurs are in concentration camps? Tell me, articulate. And this is the question that I asked Matt Duss when this war first started. Until you can articulate to me what the rationale is behind where America intervenes and where it doesn't, and give me some kind of moral accounting that makes me believe that it's actually about moral commitments and realizing how much of our money and our resources in the richest country in the world can go to saving lives and increasing the quality of life for the most people, as opposed to a strategic military intervention for territory, resources, and political control. If you can articulate to me why this is truly the most deserving humanitarian case on the planet, as opposed to a continuation of these Cold War policies, we want our economic system, our oppressive, by the way, economic system to maintain global dominance, then I can start to entertain a conversation about what our intervention should be, how long, and how much. But there is nowhere in the entire public sphere that conversation is actually happening, and nowhere close to a rationalization that's been presented.
So the part where the part where the NAFO trolls got upset was this part here, because they said she rolled her eyes about the
They're
children.
stealing Ukrainian children. 500 just yesterday were shipped.
That part. So they took this because this clip was posted on Twitter, right? People take clips from the interviews, they share them on Twitter. So they took that clip of that guy that she interviewed. He took that clip and basically he sent the NAFO trolls like after her, right? And I was just like, this is crazy. And the NAFO trolls are wild. So when that happened, again, like I said, they were on Twitter saying like, we got to get her off. Let's get her kicked off Patreon. Let's get her kicked off of this and kicked off of that. Like this shit is wild. Like people have nothing else better to do, right? So now here we go again. This time it's the Daily Beast. Someone's trying to get me fired from the Hill by leaking to the Daily Beast I've been incredibly proud of my coverage of Israel and Palestine on the Hill, and I'm glad to have an opportunity to represent a view that is too frequently erased from corporate news. Also, all my quotes in this article are based. So we're going to get to the article in just a second. So apparently it sounds like we'll get to that in a second. So we're going to go to this particular clip here, because Bree says a reminder of what caused all the fuss, defending Palestine's right to resist occupation under international law and calling out the lies told by Biden and others to justify Israel's disproportionate response and genocide against Gazans. Listen to this. This is what kicked it off, apparently.
The condemnable action is the killing of civilians and innocents. The condemnable action is not resistance itself. That is something that is worth a distinction. And if you create conditions, every defender of Israel right now is saying, well, killing Palestinian kids is collateral damage. That's what it means for Israel to defend itself, that it's going to kill some Palestinian kids and innocents.
And I have criticized that every time it has appeared, has come across
but
our
what
screen.
the United States of America did was to stand at a podium and say, without any caveats, Israel has a right to do that, to defend itself, even if it means killing those innocent women and children. And what people are responding to is the inconsistency with which the lives lost that are innocents are treated. And yes, it matters infinitely more that a sitting Congress member, and by the way, also Lindsey Graham, it wasn't just Max Miller, it was any number of Republican Congress members. Lindsey Graham also echoed the sentiment that we should level Gaza. He wants to go to nuclear war with Iran. That's the situation we're in. And so you're sitting here criticizing whoever runs the Black Lives Matter Chicago Twitter page. And I'm criticizing members of Congress who are openly
members of Congress too.
Who are openly contemplating genocide against a population of 2.3 million people, half of which are children.
And it's a population of people that they don't, particularly the West doesn't care about, right? So we got to keep it real, because the same type of compassion that they had for the Ukrainian children, they don't have that same type of compassion for Palestinian children. And also, I remember people, particularly in this country, this is why I can't spend too much time on Facebook. They were making comments on Facebook about the children in Yemen and Syria that were affected by the attacks, making blatant comments like, nobody cares, they're not Christian. Nobody cares, they're not one of us. And we see this type of thing all across the board. And it's very sad. And I've said this before, there's a lack of sympathy and empathy when you darken the color of their skin and you take them away from Christianity. The empathy and the sympathy for people in the West, for the most part, it just doesn't seem to be there.
Criticize that over and over again. I will continue to do so. Lindsey Graham does not represent my views. I don't share any views with Lindsey Graham. His foreign policy is everything I think the Republican Party should pivot away from, and the Democratic Party, frankly, which is more bloodthirsty than the Republicans on this.
You keep saying that you criticize this stuff, Robbie, but
I do criticize. I don't hear a lot of criticism from you of the leftist groups endorsing terrorist attacks.
I don't think the leftist group should endorse terrorist attacks.
Well, they are endorsing
Wait a minute. Well, okay, and I don't agree with that. But what I fundamentally do agree with is that they endorse the right to resist. And you keep sitting here saying, what does that mean? I support the occupation. The same way that if Israel has the right to defend itself, Palestinians also have the right to resist under international law. You are not allowed to keep people in an apartheid state and an occupied condition.
You're not allowed to shoot randomly into people's cars because you don't like the political situation.
You're not allowed to bomb humanitarian aid workers and Palestinian children.
I agree, you shouldn't do that.
Okay, so why is it that it only comes out they're not allowed? Israel has the right to resist, and it is violating international law. That's the subject of the conversation always. Palestinians have the right to resist.
And has violated.
Well, talk to Bibi Netanyahu about it, because you're
acting like I haven't criticized him all 3 days.
Why is it every time there's an effort to get to the root cause here? Who caused Hamas? Bibi Netanyahu. Who's killing these children? Who's keeping this occupied?
Who is endorsing what Hamas is doing? The American left. That's who.
That's insane, Rob.
Well, it's true. It is insane, but it's true.
I
wonder if Bree knows that she has a text message came through on this video. I wonder if she noticed that.
I can see their statements.
Okay,
Everyone
wait a
knows
minute,
it and
Robbie,
everyone
Robbie.
understands.
Yeah, so Robbie got a little crunk like on, on that discussion, right? So apparently it seems like it's that conversation that really kind of tipped the scales, right? So the Daily Beast, they like to smear people. They've smeared Kim Iverson before too. I talked about that last year. They put out this hit piece in reference to Briahna Joy Gray, and they said, Israel-Hamas conflict spills over in newsroom shouting matches. Where is our leadership? One staffer at the Hill fumed. Notice it's always one staffer, but they never tell you who the person is, right? Okay, here we go. While anchors at the self-described centrist cable news channel News Nation blast MSNBC for supposedly pandering to the far left in its coverage of the bloody Gaza conflict, the network's corporate cousin faces its own internal drama over a strident criticism of Israel following the Hamas terror attacks. And this is where they come after Brie. Briahna Joy Gray, co-host of the Hill's online morning show Rising, has drawn fire from staffers at the Beltway political outlet for what some describe as her pro-Hamas and fringe commentary. Let's highlight vocabulary. Fringe. Didn't I tell you guys this is one of the words they always use when they want to try to turn you off from a position? Fringe candidates, fringe commentary, fringe views. You see how they continue with this? It's not just Daily Beast. This is a continual thing. It goes on and says, during recent broadcasts, she has gotten into extremely heated and at times profane arguments with libertarian co-host Robbie Sov over Sov's belief that the American left, namely Black Lives Matter and Democratic Socialists of America, is backing Hamas. Besides getting into literal shouting matches with her co-star, like the former Bernie Sanders press secretary has faced internal criticism for, as one Hill newsroom source put it, seemingly finding ways to justify Hamas actions. So this is Daily Beast trying to stir things up, because when you say that it's one Hill newsroom source, obviously it's someone who works there. They're not giving out the person's name. I guess the person wanted to be anonymous, but then now you're coming to work and you're thinking, I wonder who it was that said that, right? Like they did this to Kim Iverson. When the Daily Beast wrote that smear piece about Kim Iverson over a year ago, they said a similar thing, that one source at the Hill at Rising said they're not liking Kim and they're not fond of Kim, right? But again, not telling you. And then you see what happened. Eventually Kim left, right? Now it goes on to say, in broadcast last week, Gray fumed over conflicting reports about whether Hamas terrorists decapitated babies, suggesting it was a propagandist lie to dehumanize Palestinians and justify genocide. She also seemed to downplay the killing of Israeli children, describing it as a part of combat. First of all, the decapitated babies thing was already debunked, so I don't even know why the Daily Beast is mentioning that again. Come on, the Daily Beast. You are like the TMZ of journalism. I swear, I think the Daily Beast is like tabloid journalism. We also have to hold space for 140 Palestinian children who have been killed in the last weekend of conflict, Gray said on Wednesday. And it is awful, even if we don't have the same images of them, and even if they were killed from bombs from the sky instead of in hand-to-hand combat. Another point of contention is how she appeared to equate the terror attacks with the Palestinian resistance to the Israeli oppression of Gaza. Violence is not a violation of international law. Resistance is not a violation of international law, she declared on Thursday, referencing the American Revolution and the Ukraine war as analogous situations. Additionally, her comment about Israel's longstanding tensions with Palestine raised some eyebrows. So few of our conversations get to what it means to have a Jewish state, what it means to have a belief that you cannot be safe, but for having a demographically rigged situation like that. She stated in an episode on Thursday, adding that she understands that the obviously historical conditions that make people feel that way. Now, here we go. See, this is what they did to Kim Iverson. Now they bring in the other staff members. Several Hill reporters expressed concern over Gray's reckless commentary, worrying that her status as co-host of their morning show would make their job talking to lawmakers in Washington harder. So it's all about access. So this isn't necessarily a problem with Briahna Joy Gray. It's a problem with access. And if you lose access to politicians, maybe instead you should ask we should be asking the politicians why they're not willing to talk to people that don't agree with them. Now, these politicians, they can move across aisles to pass bills that they feel need to be passed that are going to benefit corporate interests. They can move across aisles to pass bills that they think should be passed to fund Ukraine, to support the military industrial complex. They have no problem talking with people that they disagree with when it comes to bipartisanship in Congress. But when it comes to talking to people who are journalists, who are reporters, when it comes to talking to even their own constituents who may disagree with them, they can't have that. And I say, if you can't answer those questions that these journalists are giving you, then maybe you shouldn't be a politician. You're supposed to be able to answer the tough questions. So instead of them taking out that frustration on the politicians in DC who are not willing to give them access because of what a co-host is saying on the show, they're taking out the frustrations with Bree because they're saying you're the reason that we may not be able to maintain that access. Ain't that a bitch? I tell you, let me go on. Where is our leadership? They're continuing. Where is our leadership? Clearly, no one from Nexstar is paying attention. Now, Nexstar is the company that owns Rising. One source said, there is no way they would be okay with this. Notably, the uproar comes just a year after The Hill ditched longtime Rising contributor Katie Halper for calling out Israel as an apartheid state over its treatment of Palestinians. In fact, the program has been a source of controversy and friction at the outlet for some time and has seen a fair share of its hosts leave abruptly. Gray's commentary has yet to be noticed by News Nation, which is also owned by Nexstar. Ding, 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 ding. Did you guys know that? Did you guys know that the same company that owns Rising owns News Nation? Let's continue. Let's continue. The channel has taken on a largely pro-Israel stance in its reporting of the conflict, similar to the rest of conservative and mainstream media, leading it to take swings at MSNBC for its victim blaming of Israel, specifically taking aim at Muslim American hosts. That ridiculous commentary set the tone for much of MSNBC's coverage throughout the weekend, where many hosts seemed determined to say, well, what about the Palestinians? News Nation anchor Dan Abrams, for instance, raged last week. The fact that people have to even ask, well, what about the Palestinians? That tells people that you don't care about those people. Gray and a representative for Nexstar did not respond to a request for comment. The turmoil hasn't been limited to Nexstar newsrooms. NBC News had its own dust up last week after an employee in the engineering department used an all-staff Slack channel to promote a Microsoft Teams event for staffers to grieve the lives lost in Hamas attack and discuss the on-ground stories from family and friends. But the post devolved into chaos after a producer from MSNBC's Ali Veshi questioned a lack of Palestinian representation at the event. The engineering staffer then tagged an HR rep and claimed the meeting was not about Palestinian and Jews and Israelis. You see what's interesting? A lot of these outlets that talk about like they want diversity, and a lot of these companies that say that they want diversity, they hire the people that give them the diversity. But the moment when the people want to speak up about what's happening to their people, they don't want to hear that. So here we go with Ali Velshi. We also talked about Mehdi Hassan, same thing, how they just basically kick these guys to the side silently and hoping that no one would notice that these guys' shows have not been running since this conflict started. And that is crazy that they would think that no one would notice. But this is something you got to pay attention to. They'll do this, though. They'll do this. They'll tell you we need diversity. We want, yay, we got diversity. Woohoo, whoopity-doo. But as soon as your issue comes up about your people and you bring it up, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to deal with that. Diversity in name only. Anyone entering this group needs to denounce terror and what happened on Saturday, the engineering staffing wrote, noting that claims of freedom fighting and rationalizations do not belong here. The producer rejected the insinuation, asking the staffer, "Why are you speaking for me? Your comments are extremely offensive." They accused the engineering staffer of equating the loss of Palestinian civilian life with terrorism and saying that I have no right to grieve as you do. So, as you can see, they are already coming after Bree again. And like I said, I feel like they're planting a seed because they did this last year to Kim Iverson, got quotes from Hill staffers, put it in an article, smeared Kim, and then the next thing you know, there's the interview with Fauci, and they tell Kim you can't be part of this interview, even though she had the most extensive coverage and research on it. And next thing you know, Kim was gone. How does the world feel? How does the world feel? This is how the world feels. If you're confused about which side to be on, there is a global, multiracial, multi-faith, popular movement for justice in solidarity with Palestine. There isn't one happening right now for prohibit. And this is what I told people. This is what I was telling you. Look at all the pictures. Greece, you can see now. France also, I showed a bunch of the videos. We know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians. That was a quote from Nelson Mandela. And I told you guys before, there is a statue of Nelson Mandela in Palestine. What's up, Jen? Jen said, Sabby, thank you for saying what you did about diversity. I will not be anyone's diversity hire. Whoop, whoop. That's right, Jen. It's true. I'm telling you. Yeah, they want diversity in name only. So it sounds like, people at Rising are, for the most part, backing Bree. I saw she did an interview with Glenn Greenwald. Go check that out. And she did talk about this as well. Robbie has come out in defense for Bree. So I think that's really good. And I also want to say this was really funny to me is we're going to talk about this hypocrisy when it comes to censorship, because what I'm noticing is some of the same people that said, no, let us talk about the jab and the pandemic. That's censorship. Some of the same people that said, no, let us talk about Russia and Ukraine. That's censorship. Oh, but you changed the topic. You changed the topic to Israel and Palestine. And all of a sudden it's shut up or go home. Now all of a sudden it's fire her, get her off the air. And this is something I've said before. Some of the people who were screaming about, no, free speech, censorship, no. Once you change it to a subject that they don't agree with, all of a sudden they're all for cancel culture. Pay attention to that. I want you to hear this from Miko Peled as well. Miko Peled, he was on the show before. He was a general's son. So he has a book about this. He's spoken about this on multiple platforms. I want you to hear what Miko said. They would never allow him to come onto mainstream media to get this message across to people. Listen to this. Miko Peled explains how Israeli generals saw the opportunity for expansionism when the Arab military were weak. Miko Palid comes from a family of high-ranking Israeli generals. A Zionist turned into a Palestinian activist. I did an interview with him. Check that out if you haven't seen it on my channel. Listen to this.
My father was a general. He was a member of the Israeli High Command at that time. In my book, in this book, in The General's Son, I actually have the actual minutes from the meetings of these generals explaining why they wanted the war. It wasn't because there was a threat. It wasn't because Israel was being threatened or Jewish people were being threatened. They wanted the war because they saw an opportunity. And they began a massive assault against Egypt. And when that went very well, they decided they would take the West Bank and the Gaza Strip and the Golan Heights, which were areas they wanted to take anyway. They were planning to do anyway. This was a...
Did you hear that part? Those areas, they were planning to take those areas anyway.
Massive assault by Israel against its Arab neighbors because they wanted to destroy their military and because they wanted the land. And within 6 days, it was over. And then what they did was they perpetuated this myth, which we even hear today. People talk about that even today as though it's true, that Israel was under an existential threat, that the Arab armies were ready to come and kill and destroy and on, and none of that was true. In their meetings, in the very meetings of the generals of the Israeli High Command, which, like I said, included my father, they were talking about an opportunity to attack because the Arab armies were not prepared for war. They say this. The Arab armies were not prepared for war. That's why we need to attack right now.
What does that tell you guys? What does that tell you?
In fact, my father himself says in one point, the Egyptian army, which was the biggest, would need at least 1.5 years or 2 years before it would be ready for war. So this is an opportunity. And the word opportunity comes up many times in their discussions. The word threat never comes up.
I want to leave you with that. We're going to do call in tonight. I did promise we would do it, so we're going to do it. Lots to discuss. A lot of things happened this week. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. I'll come back. We'll do call in. Eric, I think we promise? Yeah, I think we got a couple of super chats.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll work on those. All right. Here we are on Thursday. Yeah, so this is the time when we give Sabrina a little break before we jump into the call-in. Let me see if I can, let's see, make sure my mic's pretty loud. Testing. I'll crank it right up. Let me bring up the call-in page. See if we have call-in page viewing technology here. Here we go. Click over here. So call-ins where we get to hear what you think. You can hit the link here, actually. Bang, there. I'm putting a link to tonight's call-in into the browser. So we give Sabby a little break and then we jump into call-in. Yeah, that's in there. Yeah, call-in tonight. You can see that in the chat. Here we go. Call-in, episode 131. Call-in is still going. It's still running. Bree smeared, Britney reveal, MTG, more. You can talk about these stories. You can talk about anything you want and call in. You can hear Roger Meadows talk to us and call in. He won't come on camera, but he'll come on call in. And you can tell us what you think. You can do it on the computer. You can do it on your cell phone with the call in app. Rumble acquired call in a while back, and they were talking about getting rid of it, or apparently at some point they will. But Colin is still running. Now let's see. We got a few chats here in the queue. Let's check those out. I guess I should show them. Here we go. Thanks for the super chat, M. Smith. Bree needs a medal for dealing with Robbie. Oh, there you go. Yeah, Robbie really got up in his feels on that one. That was, but at the same time, what's interesting. I mean, it obviously wasn't a great look for him, but I guess it was a ratings winner. I mean, it got them. I think that clip went fairly viral. I guess it got them a lot of eyeballs. So whatever it takes, right, to get views. And thanks a lot for this. I guess we call this a super sticker for this paid chat. The Canadian dollars from Not So Blue Bear. I appreciate that one. And thanks for this $10 super chat, George Gunnell. We must stand up to these lying right-wingers in media. Thank you, Sabby. I also think left channels must be sure that merch sold on their sites comes with union-made labels. Peace. Thanks. That's definitely a good idea, George, and we appreciate the super chat. Let's see. Yeah, so like I said a little earlier, this is where we give Sabby a short break, and then she's going to come on to wrap it up, and then we jump over to Colin. Let's see here. Wait, that's not it. There we go. Notary said solid recommendation, George. Yes, appreciate that. And all right. So let me see. I made some notes here. Oh yeah. So I have to have notes to figure out what to talk about. Whoever says we'll see you in Colin. Yeah, we see whoever she's also in the Colin chat, and always love her comments there as well. But she won't call in, even though I've tried to pressure her to call in. So we hear her voice. Maybe tonight will be the night. We'll see. But yeah, all right. So we're talking about Sabrina. When we were on, I think it was the last show. Yeah, all of a sudden we're chugging along, and then I noticed on my other monitor where I have the YouTube screen playing that the YouTube is stopped, and yeah, it was some kind of it was a copyright match. I mean, YouTube has these algorithms, and they match up the copyright, and if it matches something that's in probably their database for copyrighted material, then I think it's pretty automatic. They pause and stop the stream, and then when they view it as the copyrighted material stops, they probably have timers on it as well. So you play it too long, and then if you stop playing it, then the stream comes back, and so Sabrina brought up the concept of fair use, and yeah, I mean, fair use should play into this, and the concept of fair use, as I understand it, is if you're a media organization or even just a commentator, and you're playing or quoting the content for news purposes or to cover it in some fashion, then that's known as fair use, and it's definitely like allowed under the law, and it kind of has to be, because otherwise you really can't have media. It would be a huge impediment to news media and so forth if every time they tried to show anything they got hit with copyright or patent and whatnot. And so generally for the fair use exemption, a lot of times the way it works is you can't just play the content from start to finish. If you do that, then it's just seen as copying. But if you play some of the content, you stop and you comment on it, and then play some more. If you don't play the whole thing, then it's generally put under that fair use exemption. But the thing with YouTube is they don't care. They don't have to care. They have all the power. They have, the platform is a de facto monopoly for how it runs. It's the biggest one, and good luck fighting YouTube. So fair use is whatever they say it is. And so they just have algorithms and timers, and, you can't sue them for fair use. It's not, because they're not government. And so it just is what it is. And so as far as I always like to pivot to solutions on these things, and demands. And so, we need to be demanding that a huge platform like YouTube be nationalized, be broken up. Of course, Google should just be broken up. It's not even a close call. The size of Google and these huge corporations are ridiculous, and you break them up and then you nationalize them. You nationalize what's left as a straight up Google, and then even beyond that, you can democratize them. You could have the government take Google essentially by eminent domain, especially YouTube, and say, okay, now it's owned by all the employees. It's a worker co-op, and they make the rules, and you run it from there. These kind of things are possible, but it's never going to happen as long as our government is in the grip of the billionaires and that kind of top 1% money. And so it always comes back to the money and the corruption, and then the fixes for that. All right.
That's right. That's
All
right.
And now we swing over to call in.
Yeah. Now it is time for call in. So this is episode 131, actually. Bree smeared, Britney reveal, MTG, and more. Let's chat. Plus, there's a lot of other stories that happened this week that you may want to talk about as well. So feel free to join. The link is pinned to the top of the chat in the live chat. So I will see you guys over there, and let's go ahead and do the damn thing. All right, guys. So I'll see you on call in. You know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.